Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Casey, and today I want just a kind of an easy win sewing project. Now I love to cook. I also love to wear white, and I wear a lot of white, especially in the summertime. And whenever it comes time to start making dinner, I always have to go change my shirt because I'm always afraid of getting food splatter on my white clothing. I have no excuse for why I haven't done this sooner, but today I'm gonna make it all right. I'm going to make myself an apron. Now I'm gonna walk you through the steps of drafting this yourself if you wanna do this yourself, but I'll also provide a link to a very simple basic pattern for the apron shape that I'm gonna be making today. So be sure to check the description for that link if you wanna just get the pattern and not have to think about it too much. So I'm gonna be using this leftover linen fabric that I used for an Ella dress sample that I made. I love the dusty blue color of this fabric. I think it is so pretty. And if I can find it, I'll put a link down in the description. I've ordered it a couple of times and it's been really nice, and I've gotten it in a few different colors. So this fabric has already been pre-washed, and I pre-wash all of my fabrics before I sew. And this actually smells so good. I love the smell of fresh laundry, and I've actually recently switched over to the Blueland tablets, the little laundry tablets, and the Spring Bloom scent smells freaking amazing. I'll be sitting on the couch and I'll think, gosh, something smells really good. And it's me. I smell great because I've been using their laundry detergent. They also have an unscented version if you prefer unscented laundry detergent, but I personally really like a little bit of a scent. All of Blueland's products are sustainable and plastic free, which is so nice. And I have had several months of experience with Blueland. Actually, gosh, longer than several months. I've been using their products for a while, and I really love them a lot. Most laundry pods, even the ones that look eco-friendly, contain microplastics. Their cleaning products come with reusable containers, compostable packaging for the refills, and the laundry detergent lifts tough stains and keeps colors bright, as a laundry detergent should. And I just like that there aren't a bunch of extra bulky plastic bottles to store. I've also been using their hand soap. They have a really nice, light, very lovely scent. And their packaging for those, again, is so minimal. I just throw them in a drawer in the kitchen. They take up hardly any space. And when I need a new one, I just plop it into some water and wait for it to dissolve. And then I have a nice, luxurious foaming hand soap to use. So you can sign up to a subscription with Blueland and have your refills automatically shipped on a schedule that you choose, or you can choose a one-time purchase if you want to try it out. And Blueland is offering 15% off of your first kit. All you have to do is click the link down in the description below this video or scan this QR code to try it for yourself. Thank you again to Blueland for sponsoring today's video. All right, let's make an apron. Let's get to it. And I need to actually, I think I have enough of this to do an apron. Yeah, this should be enough. I also thought about doing some little accents with this kind of neon yellow. Oh my gosh, it looks so bright on the screen. Something about the color of this spoke to me. I don't ever wear this color, but I thought it might be kind of cool to do a little bit of like accents, like some flat piping or something around some of the elements of this apron. So I also have that. So I'm gonna iron this out nice and flat, and that'll make it a little easier to cut a symmetrical shape for my apron. All right, so here's the plan. I looked up a couple of examples of aprons online. There's a lot of places you can get aprons online. So I really like this Headley and Bennett option. They've been around for a while, and they have the measurements for their apron on their website. The body width is 35 inches, so that's gonna be the max width that will wrap around my body. And then the height is 28 3/4. So I'm just gonna round up to about 30 inches and then go from there. And that should give me enough coverage on the front all the way down to possibly my mid thighs is what I'm thinking. I don't really need it to be super long, but I just kind of want some basic torso coverage. So I was kind of limited with my fabric because I have made a few things out of this already. So I had to kind of strategically fold this to get the whole apron out of it, but I think it's gonna work out. So I'm gonna try to do at least 30 inches. And then the width, I've got this folded so that I have a width of approximately 18.5 inches when it's folded in half. So that'll be almost 37 inches once it's unfolded. And then once I account for seam allowance, it's going to be a little bit under that total width dimension. So I think what I'm going to do is, oh, I know what I'm going to do. So I have a pair of overalls in my closet somewhere. Let me find them. There we go. Now I made these a while back, But I wanted to just kind of compare the bib size and the kind of distance between the top of the bib to the waist, basically, where it's gonna kind of go around. I think this is actually a pretty good size, and I'll use this as a kind of guide for creating that arm opening there in the front of the apron. So I'm just gonna fold this in half across the front here. Actually, let me measure this. So this is about 6.5, so it's about 13 inches across the total top of the bib. So yeah, we'll keep it about right there. And I really love these, they're like heat soluble fabric marking pins. I just get them in bulk on Amazon, so I'll put a link to those as well in the description. Because I really prefer to just mark out my pattern pieces whenever I'm sewing instead of pinning or weighting down the pattern pieces for cutting it. Just make sure that everything kind of stays put where it's supposed to be. And this is kind of rough because, you know, obviously I have some elastic here, but I'm just gonna kind of trace where that comes across. And then I'll lift this up and I'll put the waist approximately here. And then I'm actually just gonna kind of smooth out this curve so it's a little less harsh. I'll start there. And then it'll just go to there. Okay. Probably should have done this not on my ironing mat. So let me just pull that up. And it's nice having a cutting mat with a grid on it like this because you can kind of use it to help you line stuff up. I got this cutting mat at Joann long before they closed down. It is awesome. I think they have them on Amazon too, so I'll link that below because I get a lot of questions about this cutting mat. It's just a, gosh, what is it, like 3 foot by, I think 5 foot cutting mat, and it fit perfectly on top of this table. This is just a thrifted table that I got. So anyway. Okay, so I got the basic shape here. I just want to hold it up to my body and kind of see what we're working with. Oh yeah, I think that's going to be plenty. I could probably actually go in a little bit more narrow here on the side, although once I put it in the seam allowance, do I want to do that? Because I might actually finish this with a bias binding. Ooh, yeah, I think I do want to do a bias binding, do a contrast bias binding. I think that would look really cool. So I think I might actually bring this in just a little bit. So I did like 13 inches. I think I'll bring it in about about a half to 3/4 inch on each side, just to make it a little bit more narrow. And then that way, once the binding is on, it'll kind of be about right here. I think this is probably just fine here. Okay, feeling good about that. I also need to figure out the strap length for this apron. So I've got my tape measure here. I'm just gonna hold it kind of at the upper end of the numbers and throw it over my shoulder like so. Grab the other side because the straps are gonna crisscross in the back. And I think it'll probably hit about right there maybe, if I remember correctly, about the waist. And I think the top will probably be somewhere around here, and that's about 28 inches. Actually, I probably wanna go, I'll do it 28, I'll pin it in place and then reevaluate and see if I need to make it a little bit shorter. But yeah, I think that should do it. Okay, 28 inches. So I'm gonna do some pretty wide straps, and I'm gonna cut 2 strips that are pretty long. I think I'll do them about, do I have enough room to do 5 inches for each? Yeah. Okay, I think I'm gonna do them both 5 inches wide. To make the straps, I'm just gonna fold this right sides together, and I'm gonna sew along the raw edge to create a tube. And then once I have those sewn, I'm gonna turn them both right side out. I've got 2 straps here and give them a good press. And I'm just going to top stitch along both edges of the straps just to make sure that they stay flat. The first thing that I want to do is attach the straps at the top here, and I'm gonna bring them in about, I don't know, maybe like a 1/4 inch so that it leaves room to attach the bias tape. And I'm just gonna baste those in place at the top of the bib on the apron. Just like that. And now I'm gonna do a little test fit and see how long to make the straps. Okay, so if I just take this and drape it over. It's probably not even necessary to do the other side just because they'll both be the same. Okay, so I know now how long I want the straps to be, so I'll just trim the strap to length and baste it again to this position here the same way I did at the top, and then I will do the bias binding to finish the edges. I want to check my strap length too and see how close I was to the right length. Wow, 28 inches on the dot. That's pretty darn good, y'all. Okay, so I'll cut both of these to 28 inches length and then attach them to the apron. So I had attached the straps right sides together at both the bib top and the sides. And now I just want to kind of get that positioned, and I'm going to use my bias binding to finish the raw edges. And I think if I have enough, I'm going to go down the sides as well. I created some bias binding out of that neon fabric. I think that's going to look really cool with the blue, a nice little pop of contrast. I did this off camera, but I do have a video tutorial here on the channel for how to make bias binding and all of my best bias binding tips. So be sure to check that out if you would like to know how I made all of this. Yeah, I think I'm going to do the top, like the arm side and the top and the arm side first, and then I will come back and do the sides and decide how I want to do those. So one thing that I do when I install bias binding is I do not pin it all the way around. I kind of pin one side just to kind of hold it in place so I can get it under the presser foot. And then I just kind of guide it through without pinning it so that it doesn't get bunched up. I want to make sure that I have that strap flipped down so I can sew across the top of it with the bias binding. When I get to the corner, I'm going to stop a 1/4 inch shy of the corner, and then I'm going to pivot my bias binding to go around that square edge. So I'm going to cut a little notch right in here so that I can open that up. I'm just going to clip into the curve a little bit to make this a little easier to turn. Then do the same thing with the other side. I'm also making sure not to clip the stitching. I'm just clipping up to the stitching, or almost up to it. Then I can flip this over, and I'm just going to turn the bias binding to the inside, to the wrong side of fabric, and press that down all the way around. And because I've got this pre-pressed bias edge, basically, it's going to create a nice clean finish on the inside. And so at the corner here, I'm just going to press that down, make sure I keep that turned under, and then press that down, give it a good press. Then I will just top stitch that around the perimeter there. I'm going to start about a 1/4 inch away from the edge here because I'll probably trim that off when I do the finishing of the side. When I attach it on the side, I'll actually extend this up a little bit. I probably could have just gone ahead and attached this all the way around the same way I did at the top, but I didn't. So I'm gonna just pull this up a little bit so that I can fold it under before I fold it over. So I want to turn this right side facing up, and then I'm going to attach the bias binding on the other side. Then I will just flip that little edge over the top here toward the wrong side, and then I'll fold all the bias binding toward the wrong side and press it down and then top stitch it in place. So I stopped my bias binding about 8 inches from the bottom, and this is just personal preference because I want to do a really thick hem at the bottom edge. So before I sew down the edge of this bias tape on the interior, I just want to pre-press the hem. So let's see, I know I'm going to fold it toward the interior. Let me go ahead and press that. And I'm basically doing like a 4-inch hem. Spray that. And then I'm going to press a 1/2 inch fold along the bottom. Then I'm going to fold that up about 4 inches and press it again. Then I'm just going to turn this over with the right side facing up. Fold this up in the opposite direction and align it with the edge here. And I'm just going to line up my seam allowance here with where the bias tape seam allowance is and just sew all the way down the side. And I also want my first little 1/2 inch fold to be folded down. So I'm just going to clip these little corners here. Same here. Turn it right side out. Oh, how did I mess that up? Shoot. So I actually shouldn't have left this flat. This needed to be flipped out this way when I did that. So I'm just gonna seam rip this really quick. That's frustrating, but an easy fix. I actually don't have to seam rip it all the way, just far enough to get the bias tape folded over and away. Then I can go in. And I'm basically gonna be kind of stitching in the ditch of the bias tape right here. So it'll be the same stitch line, but the bias tape just needs to be flipped toward the opposite side. So I'm gonna redo that. So now when we flip it right side out, so you can see that bias tape is kind of doing its own thing here. It's off to the side here. There's the seam that goes right beside where the bias tape is sewn to the front of the apron. So now I'm gonna flip this right side out, and the bias tape will now be tucked into that hem really nice and neat. So I'm just going to flip all of this right side out, and then I will stitch the bias tape to the side, and then I will stitch the hem closed. And last but not least, I just want to add a couple of pockets. So I'll do a 1/4 inch fold along one edge. And then a 1 inch fold. Then the same way I did for the hem, I'm just going to fold this back and stitch 1/4 inch on either side. Then I will just clip those corners. Flip that right side out. And then I'll use that little turn right there under the hem to start the 1/4 inch fold for the rest of the pocket. Then I'm just going to top stitch across here to tack that hem in place. Then I'll attach this to the front of the apron. And I've got 2 of these, so I'm going to put it on either side of the apron on the front. I'm just going to fold this in half and press a fold in the center so that I can find the center. Then I can measure the pocket locations off of that. And in the pattern that I have created, I actually provide suggested pocket locations so that you can mark them on your pattern pieces. All right, so the apron is finished, and this is a pretty easy afternoon project. It did take me a little bit longer than an afternoon because I was also filming, but I think you could definitely do this in an afternoon. Super, super simple. And with the contrast bias binding that's kind of clean finished on the inside, you could actually wear this both ways. I actually kind of wish I would have put pockets on the inside as well. Basically did like a double-sided pocket situation here because I think this looks really fun flipped the other way so you can see that contrast binding. If you want to get this pattern, I'll put a link to that down in the description. And if you are a Patreon member at the Pattern Scout Patreon page, you can get this pattern complimentary with your Patreon membership. So I'll put a link to the post down below as well. If you click that link and you aren't a Patreon member and you'd like to become one, there will be an option to join if you'd like to further support the channel and the work that I do here and over on the Pattern Scout Home YouTube page. And I have already used this apron a couple of times to cook dinner, and I posted a bonus video over on the Patreon page where I showed you guys one of my favorite recipes, a bell pepper soup using some bell peppers from my garden. So I wanted to try out the apron and have a little chatty dinner making session with you guys. So if you'd like to check that out, be sure to head over to Patreon. Now this pattern uses about 1 yard of fabric. If you have a wider fabric, like 54 to 60 inches wide, 1 yard is probably gonna be plenty for this pattern. If you're using a more narrow fabric, like what is it, like 42 or 45 inches wide, then you're probably gonna need about 1.25 yards, so a little bit more. And I also provided 3 sizes in the pattern. I did a small, medium, and large, but that spans the size range of size 0 to size 30. Just to kind of give you an idea, I kind of fall right in the middle of my size range. So most aprons that I have found are one size fits all, but if you would like a little bit more customization options for the sizing, I did provide that in the pattern. Also, the pattern is just very basic. It's just the apron shape, the straps, and the pockets. There's no instructions. This video will serve as the instructions for the pattern. Also, one of our cousins sent me a really cute pinafore apron that she bought from, she sent me a picture of it, that she bought from, I think, Ballerina Farm. And Headley & Bennett also sells the pinafore style aprons with a gathered skirt below the bib. So something like that would be a really easy hack for this. You could just cut it off here, make this 1.5 times longer, and then gather it up and reattach it. So you have some options there for hacking. I mean, it's such a basic pattern. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there in case you like that style a little bit better than the smock style, which this is. That is it for today's video. I also want to thank Blueland again for sponsoring this video. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.